solution to the trolley problem is to have brakes.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Bye.
Tonight, it was a week ago today that a deranged teenager called Salvador Ramos murdered 19 children and 2 teachers in El.
Of all the reasons why you could imagine supporting gun rights, well, I like to hunt, or I need to protect my family. Tim Pool has one that has absolutely nothing to do with the narrative that he's been pushing for quite some time in an attempt to drive his engagement and viewership. Ladies and
I
gentlemen,
gotta save it again really quick.
Tim Pool.
Let me tell you why you need guns. You do not need guns for the most part, because there will come a time where you are fighting the government. No, don't. That's not why you should use guns. But there may come a time where there are instances. Well, let me rephrase that. This idea of fighting tyranny, it is not the idea that a bunch of good old boys take their guns and say, we need to fight back against the government. No, that's not what it's about. In the event that, I don't know, police start actually just gunning people down, and you may see civil war, okay, sure, I guess. If there would be no, there can be no civil war in the event that there's a disarmed well, that's actually not true. I was going to say a disarmed population means no civil war, but that's not the case. Civil war erupts when state-level governmental factions actually fight with each other, so actually I would say the opposite. Gun rights actually are more likely to prevent civil war because it makes everybody recognize who knows. You know, who knows who's armed. If it's just the government and the government breaks with itself, you get civil war. Let me tell you the real reason for why you...
It's just like, so that's just the mutually assured destruction, nuclear proliferation argument, but for civil war. If everybody has guns, then it just makes it way more likely, makes peace more likely.
What you just said was even more rational than what he really obviously has thought this through.
Yeah, well, I mean, he actually himself about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Like himself.
He covered every perspective. I mean, it's well-rounded coverage.
Well, let me rephrase that.
What's going to happen with a civil war? Government factions are going to break apart. So in other words, it's going to be a civil war.
Between, I guess, the government or the police and private citizens, and then also... But it would be better to have guns because everyone can assume that we all are armed.
Yeah.
So that if the assumption is we're all armed, we won't shoot each other.
Again, mutually assured destruction.
And this is going to stop a civil war because, I mean, it's just also, it's bizarre. We're going to watch out for this civil war. It could happen again. I wonder in what lines he thinks the civil war is going to occur. But does he think that, both sides aren't going to get some part of the incredible amount of both military and sort of so-called police, military, military equivalent? Where does he think all that's going to go? Oh, yeah, I'm not going to go because my neighbor could have a 22, or my neighbor could have a shotgun, as opposed to the armored vehicle the cops have down the road. What? It's just even his dumb...
Nice.
He could barely articulate or settle on a reason, and then once he did, it was completely moronic. Here he was. When was this? This is just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I think that's Thomas Madison.
Oh, God.
Thrown off. They need to have sufficient power without asking for extra permission. It should be right there and completely available to them in their living room in order to affect the change.
I believe the Second Amendment protects your right to own nuclear weapons. I believe an individual citizen in this country has a right to own a nuclear warhead.
But not a delivery device?
Oh, all of it. I think, Tim, what about
biological weapons?
Absolutely. All of it. All of it.
This is a beautiful game. Like, I love the way the house looks.
That at least has
And,
some basis.
I
Like,
just
there
love
is
the
at least an
atmosphere of
argument
it.
there.
The people are fucking
If,
creepy.
I think if you're gonna
And
say
I'm a fan of Resident Evil. I have a couple of the
right to
games,
bear
but
arms
I want to get
is
the
the
whole
right to bear
series one
arms,
day.
and if you
But,
cannot
yeah.
restrict, which weapons people have and under what circumstances, then
It is like the major contradiction in like this.
I have
argument that
Resident
we
Evil
can't
7,
regulate guns, then
3,
what we do,
and
obviously.
4
So we
so
have to
far.
say, well, you should be able to go to Walmart and buy a grenade launcher.
exactly.
Is he still identifying as a liberal?
That's we know what that is.
Yeah, I understand, but just I haven't heard. I don't know. Maybe I'm not on left Twitter enough, but I haven't heard a ton from people saying everyone should own nukes.
Yeah. Even like the most ultra leftists that are anti-gun control, I don't think they say that the Communist Party should start its own nuclear program.
They have boundaries.
And also, let's be clear. I mean, here's another thing. If everybody owned nukes, or no, if everybody was allowed to own their own nukes, guess who would own nukes?
Elon Musk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just the rich people, just the super billionaires. I mean, it's just like Elon Musk is going to. That's the way that's going to be his new Twitter policy.
That's going to be his new union busting policy.
Exactly. You join a union, or you try and shadow ban the wrong people. You might lose the city.
Here is Brett Weinstein and his wife Heather Hying of the Dark Horse podcast in their very soft NPR tones, talking about, I shouldn't do a voice for this, the Uvalde shooting, and reckoning with their the clear inconsistencies in their account, but they have some bizarre reasonings for this.
The beautiful thing about this is that everyone has gone to their favorite pet issue of what causes the shooting, and
Oh my god.
but nobody as sort of continuously and consistently as the Dark Horse podcast. So this is some great logic.
Let's suppose that the police
What does moon have to do with it?
had rushed in, and let's suppose that an officer had shot the gunman, and only 10 children had died, but the police officer had shot one child and a teacher in the process. Now, trolley problem-wise,
Press button.
Literally, like, what
Here we
the
go.
fuck?
Holy shit! I mean, is
I saw it
this like
disappear
something that
right
all these
before
guys
my
go to the same
fucking-
fucking media school and they all get trained how to use these fucking hypothetical?
The trolley problem is the only way. The trolley problem is the only viable path for right-wingers to discuss politics, because let's say hypothetically, we're starting off with a hypothetical about an actual event that just happened
shocked.
days ago.
For those who are confused as to my outfit for this, this is exactly what I met with when I went on Tim Pool's show. The exact hypothetical type scenarios. Let's bring up, what if this random edge case actually happened? And he also brought up the trolley problem. Maybe we should keep listening.
Yeah. But it is first grade level.
Okay, so,
first grade level
I literally just dropped my vape
and it is like
right here,
if we
but
had as many
I
trolleys
can't
as trolley
fucking
problems,
find it
we'd
anymore.
have a lot better infrastructure in this country.
and only 10 children had died, but the police officer had shot one child and a teacher in
It's
the process.
ridiculous.
Now, trolley problem-wise, that's better, right?
But we can't know both futures.
Right. Had that happened, we would now be talking about what had gone wrong in the police response that children and
I can't do it. It's making me so angry. I can't do it.
I don't understand how shit goes into the ether
We can't talk
some
about
fucking
two, I'm sorry, but we
times.
can't talk about two futures. Talk about what actually fucking happened. My God, Jesus.
It always
I
happens
like
to
the
me.
well, first I kind of like his like little crest in the back. It's like a black unicorn. It's a little dope. Like a Harry Potter house.
Well, that's
crest.
the dark horse.
That's the dark horse.
No, I mean it's dark horse.
That
It's
is
like a white
awesome,
unicorn. So I mean
dude.
I don't know if that's like the main coming forward.
How does that even happen?
It's the subtext. It's the subtext.
What I love about this guy that he's fresh, at least in my head, fresh off of like just learning the basics of like nut allergies like 2 weeks ago, and now he's opining about like the cause of expert level causes of gun violence in our society. It's very, I mean, telling like I was saying before about the ability for
How the
like,
fuck did I
content
lose that
creators to
shit?
just, like pivot from knowing nothing about one thing to knowing nothing about another topic. But we like, I see why Matt's frustrated. We moved past the point in which we're talking about like individual instances of like a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun as being like the reason why we have to keep them. Now we're moving to like hypotheticals. Hypotheticals where like what happens if instead of the a shooter raiding the school, it was like a demon, and the police were the only ones who had like the proper ability to exercise this demon.
Apparently I fucking threw
But you
it.
guys should be fair. They do
What
get
the
to
fuck is wrong with you?
things that they blame
What
for
the
the
fuck
shooting.
is
They're
wrong
It's
with
not just
you?
trolley problem, even though they have to mention it by contract because they are.
I'm gonna be quiet now. I think I'm suffering from like PTSD, honestly.
Yeah,
That's why
just-
I freaked out.
Right, you had some sort of mini stroke, and you're gonna power through it and
Go
watch
ahead.
the rest of the
I'll hold back.
This clip is just heating up.
Children and teachers were caught in the crossfire.
In some quarters, that would just about me being called a murderer.
Something, What if the police officer was white and the teacher was Hispanic?
What if?
What added situation is this? What added spin is this going to add to the fury over what went wrong in Uvalde? Right. So
The explicitly racialized context in which we are expected to engage all of.
I should just say YouTube user adds up with this.
And by the way, no one's doing this. No one on the left is racializing anything about the police officer, nor the race of the teacher. Nobody's doing that. Yeah.
I want to start though. What if the police officer was Van Helsing and the teacher was a vampire? Like what? There are a lot of things these kids are for just making fan fiction.
Is this the Transylvania problem?
I'm thinking more like Hugh Jackman, Van Helsing from the movie, but like what could be?
Yeah. What if the police officer was Edward and the teacher was Jacob? I mean, who knows?
Obviously, I just rewatched Twilight for about Grandma's birthday's real hard.
Hashtag Team Ed.
Not the part where they were open though. Well, that part's great.
Baseball games.
I forgot how like there was no actual music in the whole movie, so like, it makes me feel like we're going crazy. Like they'll just be staring at each other. It's like a romantic movie playing back in dead silence. It's very jarring.
This other romance.
Yeah. I mean,
They look
they
along
have
in each other's eyes.
they have the kind of storybook romance that fan fiction. Big full spike. Okay, keep going.
Of our fellow human beings, as brought to us by these charlatans like Irreplaceable David and D'Angelo. Their best-selling books told us that if we don't focus on race at all times, we will find ourselves actively being racist by doing so. It's exactly the opposite. Has created a law. How could you not hesitate if you are about to go in and try to help someone and there's a possibility that you're trying to help might not be perfect, and you then might be accused of doing exactly the harm that you are absolutely opposed to. This environment, of course,
I think there's plenty to criticize about D'Angelo and Kenji's work, especially later stuff, how it's basically been like, corporate diversity trading sort of stuff.
Particularly D'Angelo.
Yeah, there's certain limitations with that. But particularly with D'Angelo, there is no better exponent of the white fragility hypothesis than these guys right now saying, like, how could you do your job in saving kids when someone might say you're racist later? Like, that is, like, you're just what D'Angelo was describing, actually.
And it's such a leap that they're making, right? I was going to go and save the children. This is her hypothesis.
Cops in that hall.
Right.
What about white fragility? What if someone says,
Yeah.
That person that's grudge.
Those cops had just gotten EEO training, and so fresh in the back of their heads was this idea that what happens if they misgender the teacher when they break in, and so they were just paralyzed.
I could save the kids, but I don't know their pronouns yet. That's probably what was going through these cops' minds.
Just a little bit more.
Environment, of course, we're losing police right now. Not only are police departments being in some cases defunded, although
not this one.
but many of the best cops either did not apply. The future best cops might not go away, or yep, I'm out of here.
Or were driven out by mandates. And so the point is, we've done all kinds of things to reduce the effectiveness of our police.
The number one killer of police officers,
COVID-19.
Yeah. They're being
Have you guys ever seen that viral clip of a bunch of 8-year-olds fighting on a schoolyard, and one of the kids says to the police, "Hey, you're suspecting a future military officer in the U.S. Army," and it's like, what? You're disrespecting a future what? That's what they just said, and these are adults, not 8-year-olds. These are adults, and they're 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
If you're cops.
Defund really had it.
Sorry, I recorded the new video about the kids that you're disrespecting the future.
Yeah. The defund movement had a really quick chilling effect, like a Frozone type, or the Incredibles chilling effect on the police officers' efficacy, because already within just a few years, all of the effective cops have been driven out by and the vaccine mandates, and now they don't want to do their job.
Nice.
Far right, but they have to have an excuse every time shown to be behavior. Radically different than what most people think that they're there for, because otherwise, 2 years.
Oh,
You might as well.
I just one into the by the way, in the chat.
oh, no, we lost you for a split second.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I was going to say that there has to be an excuse for people who generally support first time to let the police why what the police actually do is so radically different than what in their head they think police do, from watching like cops or whatever propaganda show they have on television, on TNT, all day marathons on the weekend. Because most people people come from the one-to-one personal interaction. We've seen that when people do have those personal interactions, they usually believe that they're either bad or good. So there has to be, not just the far right media, but any kind of centrist media, there's always an excuse for why this institution, like many institutions, is failing to live up to the expectations of the public. I think it is enough to explain, because that's just not supposed to protect minority children, we're in fact just there to protect property. Propaganda, stuff like these, these incidents are very dramatic. They can't prevent someone that sharp gap between the reality of policing and their imagined police.
And does
Do
it
me a
melt?
favor and stay dead.
Here on the crew. So I apologize, and it'll never happen again, okay?
Thank you.
thing is, though, why does a house like this have a fucking morgue? It's not like they have that many family members, but, you know. I think I just have to go back upstairs and put this last head in the door.
Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. Whoa! My name is Emma Bigland in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Dorothy Roberts. Wow, can't talk today. Professor of Law, Sociology, and Civil Rights at the University of Pennsylvania, and author of Torn Apart: How the Child Welfare System Destroys Black Families and How Abolition Can Build a Safer World. Meanwhile, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's been yet another mass shooting, this time in a medical building. 4 have died, plus the shooter. CNN is reporting that an AR-15 was found on the scene and was reportedly purchased on the day of the actual shooting. There were multiple shootings happening at that very time. At the same time during the Tulsa massacre. Speaking of other shootings, there's so many. The Buffalo white supremacist has been indicted on over 24 charges, including a domestic terrorism charge. The baby formula shortage rages on. The Biden administration has announced that new shipments of formula will be airlifted from Europe as production continues to stall here in the U.S. Biden has still not broadly forgiven Susan.
I'll just die. I didn't mean to do that.
Floating a means-tested plan to the media a few weeks ago. But he did just cancel $5.8 billion for over 500,000 borrowers who attended Corinthian colleges, the for-profit education chain that defrauded them. The CDC is investigating the first reported case of monkeypox, which is fun to say, but doesn't sound like fun to have, in Georgia, so not good. In Ukraine, Zelensky says Russian forces have seized 20% of Ukrainian territory. Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine nears its 100th day. Israeli forces have reportedly shot and killed yet another journalist in the occupied West Bank, just weeks after the IDF murdered Shireen Abu
There you are! You gave us quite a scare,
young lady. Politico has obtained reporting from Phoenix about the GOP's policing strategy, deputizing Republican operatives at Democratic polling stations to question people's identifications. Voter intimidation en masse.
You've been a bad girl!
And more on today's program. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God, what?
Omaha writes in, a majority hangover after the big win
I have to do it again. Oh my fucking god,
Didn't have some
whatever.
red wine. Won't lie, but I mean, look, the Rangers are up one. Rangers are 7 wins from winning the Stanley Cup, and that's the last time they won was 1994. That was the year of my birth. And they went in high school when I was in college.
So fucked up.
And lost, and that was like
That's life,
a lot of
man.
shed, so we'll see. We'll see.
Can't not be a day that's not fucked up for whatever
Bit of
fucking
a
reason.
distracting day for that reason. But let's turn to this Mitch McConnell clip. I'm really excited for our conversation with Dorothy Roberts.
I really didn't mean to do this all over again. That was so annoying.
She's done so much research on this topic many years.
I'm just gonna end the game and go back to the fucking main menu, which is bullshit.
Yet another mass shooting. In fact, there were shootings happening
Yes.
at the same time. As
I'm
this
pretty sure it's
massacre
still saved
happened.
after I got out of the house anyway.
CNN is reporting that an AR-15 style firearm was found on the premises of the medical building, and that it was purchased a day of the
If I had to go all the way back because of one fucking mistake, this game is a trip.
gets their weapon.
This game is a fucking trip.
Also, apparently, that there was also a handgun found on the scene.
I should have literally used the fucking thing in there.
And in the afternoon, does
Wow.
mass shooting, because that's how it works in America.
I did not mean to do
Here
that.
is Mitch McConnell yesterday, though,
Whatever.
talking about mass shooting.
Let's just do it again.
And
Because the game
he
wants us
mentions
to.
the root causes
It just doesn't
of
care.
decimation of school shootings in particular.
What the
Notice what
fuck?
he leaves out, obviously.
It seems to me there are two broad categories.
It's not letting me get out of here. It's really not.
Mental illness and school safety.
That's such horse shit, dude. I don't want to play this part again.
Based on progress on this horrendous problem
Oh my god.
with our Constitution and with our government.
Bradley, can you pull
Whatever.
up the wall? No, I'm giving Bradley, can you pull up the Sam style joke? All of the times that Mitch McConnell has proposed funding for mental health facilities and healthcare in this country. There's got to be a long list, right? No, not the case. So I would love to address mental health care. I would love for Medicare for all to include wide access and payments for therapy, mental health care, etc. All of these, the gaps in filling all of the gaps in this country where therapy is frankly for a lot of people a luxury item. I would love for that to be more widely expanded. So Mitch McConnell, let's work together. Obviously. Yeah, but does he support Medicare for all? Does he support any bill that promulgates?
Right now I'm listening to CM Cedar's Majority Report show.
And the reality is that's not the case. What they're gonna
Just to
do
kind of
is
learn
say,
about him.
oh, it's
But
prices
yeah.
of the kinds of things that young kids are consuming, like pornography, like weed, or Ingram.
I think that the
saying,
fact that I don't show the content, it doesn't give me a strike, and this is kind of like me reacting to it, but you know.
Substances, or I mean, they're not really going to do anything, but that will be the rhetoric. It's all the culture.
He's a Democratic political commentator, though.
But not the thing that's being purchased, which is the guns. Yes.
Right, like they always say, like, it's not political in a post-systematic world where they are taking money from the political lobbying arm of that commodity weapon.
And let's be clear, Mitch McConnell takes a ton of money from the gun lobby and has benefited greatly from their financial resources in his career. So he mentioned school safety there. I'm not sure if that was before the Tulsa shooting. I think it was. How about hospital safety? We need Republican politicians on it today. One-door policy for hospitals. Buildings can only have one point of entry in general. Let's make every building in this country prison, essentially. No windows, one door. And then we prevent mass shooting. I mean, it's so silly.
As they laugh at the idea that
We open our homes.
buildings to be more sort of
We open our hearts.
less carbon
It's such a great
And
point.
what
Yeah,
do
exactly.
you do?
That's socialism. But this is just common sense gun safety. There have been 233 mass shootings in 2022, according to the Gun Violence Archive. That means that we are averaging well over one mass shooting a day right now. It's June 1st. Yesterday is the 152nd day of the year. 153rd today. I mean, we had multiple yesterday. It's just, to be clear on the methodology, the Gun Violence Archive defines mass shooting as one that kills 4 or more people, not including the shooter. So, it's just, yeah.
And ultimately, it has to be, I think, a federal sort of ban on the manufacture and making of this sort of implement. Like Beto O'Rourke in Texas, you can say, like, we don't want these things sold in Texas. Well, that implies that they're sold somewhere else. And guess what? We don't have hard borders in states.
Yeah.
She
That's why
loves
there's so
you.
much gun violence.
She wants us to be a family, goddammit.
Right.
You.
Like,
You. All you have to do is accept her fucking gift.
We have to have like a shotgun and a rifle and stuff like that. But I frankly don't have a problem with massive. Just we have to control these manufacturers and tell them no, you cannot sell this stuff.
Yeah.
You can't even make it.
We love you. Why can't you see that?
Those arms controls as well.
Embrace us.
But this is not a consumer product.
I said that, you mentioned the military. I said this
There
before
are
on the show.
unknowns here, and you are not
It
paying
is not a
fucking
surprise
attention.
that the United States, which is a
You think
empire
little
that
Evie's gonna put up with your shit
that
forever,
relies
bitch?
on sustaining its primacy through brute force and military action.
I am through playing games
The
with you.
military
You hear me? You hear me?
Can't
You
provide
hear me?
basic necessities for its citizens. That the way, since that's the way that the country flexes its muscle and exerts its power, that the citizenry, on an individual level, wraps up their identity in that kind of consumerism. So that's why, part of why it's so hard to break is because it's unfortunately incredibly American.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a couple of things. One, it's a, thing you can use to kill people. But it also is, like, it is just a commodity fetish. It's like some guys read gun magazines and go on gun forums and talk about their specifications and different types of guns they might buy in the future. The same way other people go on guitar forums, guitar movements.
Yeah.
Except there's a deeper sickness when it comes to, like, it's motivated by fear and hate. I think ultimately, when you're talking about franchising weapons of war, and it just shouldn't be about.
Okay, it wasn't that bad, honestly. I was just being over
And
dramatic.
it did it from 1994 to 2000.
There's no way out of there,
Expired
Missy.
the assault weapons ban, which did have gaps in it, but it sunsetted, and no one had the courage to, because of the lobbying of the NRA, among other groups, to bring it back up again. That should be the bare minimum. I want an assault weapons ban yesterday. And
Where do
I
you think
understand
you're
that there are a lot
going?
of guns already in this country, more guns than people, and it's highly concentrated among collectors and people who fetishize the stuff in that sense. But we should offer a very lucrative buyback program for these kinds of assault weaponry, and any guns for that matter. Doesn't need to be mandated. I'm sure in the end, if this ever happens, the right wing will say mandate. It's just like the vaccine mandate. It's not a mandate. But that can be a way to start.
At a certain point, I think you talk about this on left directly. I think you expand something like the Game and Fish Department to be basically the DMV of guns. And they're the ones who are going to shooting ranges, making sure no one's modifying.
They already regulate.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. We know that. And yeah, if you've ever been hunting, you've known that wardens will come up to you and check your licenses and stuff like that. So we should have them also go into gun ranges, making sure people aren't modifying weapons in ways that are unsafe. And yeah, I think, like, Trudeau's announced some sort of buyback. I'm not sure the details, but my understanding is he said that if you choose to keep your gun they'll be functionally unusable. And like I think that is the sort of like thing, right? If they, and ultimately, I don't think you're ever going to be able to go door to door or
Right.
that to politically desirable. I think it'd be an absolute disaster. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think you can ban the manufacture of these things entirely, and like it's just insane that AR-15s have been rolling off the production line all this time since Sandy.
It's unbelievable. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be joined by Dorothy Roberts.
You made it. You're the first I've ever seen make it this far.
So what is it you need me to do? Is it gonna help me get out of here?
Yes. Now listen carefully, Ethan. My family and I, our bodies are contaminated. I can't leave the property unless I get it out. And the same goes for Mia.
Is there a way to get it out?
We are back,
We need to see him.
and we are
It
joined
should clear whatever
here
this
by
stuff is out of the
Dorothy
body.
Roberts, professor
As
of
long
law,
as you're not too
sociology,
far
and
gone.
civil rights at the University of
Alright.
Pennsylvania, and
So
author
where is
of
it?
If I knew where one was,
The
I'd
Child
already be
Welfare
long
System
gone.
Destroys Black
But I have a
Families,
feeling
and
my mother has
Abolition
hidden
of
some
Seder
inside the old house
among
somewhere.
many other books.
So if we
Dorothy,
get this
thanks so
thing,
much for being here
I
today.
can help Mia and we can get out of here?
Right. And so
Of
can
course.
I.
So
The old
your
house is
work
near
on
the
this
water.
topic
You can't miss it.
extends multiple
I just hope you can
decades
handle
at
my
this
mother.
point.
Your mother?
You've been
Be
covering
careful.
this for quite
I'll
a
be looking
while.
for you.
What made you decide that you needed to write this update or this new book on the child welfare system, which you can't really call it that. You call it family policing.
Yeah, I prefer to call it what it actually is, a family policing system, because it's never been designed truly to care for children's welfare. I wrote a book now 21 years ago together called The Color of Child Welfare, where I documented the huge racial inequities in the system and also made the claim that it was a form of oppression of Black communities. And now, 20 years later, I decided it was time to write a new book, partly because I had worked on trying to engage in reform efforts to improve this system, to make it less harmful over those 20 years, including working on a big class action lawsuit settlement in Washington State for 9 years. Also, I became more of an abolitionist. So over those 20 years, I learned more about abolitionist principles and the movement to undo and replace the prison industrial complex. And I understood better over those 20 years how we cannot reform the system. It has to be completely dismantled. And then also there's been a growing movement to abolish family policing that I've been involved in. And so I thought this is a time where we need to point out the system cannot be reformed, and I wanted to support the growing movement to completely dismantle it and replace it with an approach that system or foster care, I prefer to call them the family policing system and the foster industrial complex, are part of one giant carceral apparatus. They work in the same ways. They accuse, investigate, blame, punish people in the very same communities, primarily impoverished, segregated Black neighborhoods, and also indigenous communities. It's the same target, and also they work to tend to meet human needs and solve social conflicts by punishing the people who are most burdened and disadvantaged by structural inequities. So they operate in the same way. They also operate hand in hand. And so by understanding that we're talking about one carceral apparatus, it makes sense then for movements that are trying to abolish policing by and prisons also understand that family policing and the foster industrial complex are supported by the same ideologies and work together, so it makes sense to have not a joint movement, coordinated movements to abolish them.
It's also, it's an extension, all of them together, of white supremacy and of slavery. Black children were regularly, of course, separated from their parents during slavery. Can you talk a little bit about tracing the child welfare infrastructure back to systems of slavery, oppression, colonialism, as well when we're talking about indigenous families, because as we know, Deb Haaland and the Biden administration right now, they're looking into these schools of where they separated and what's the term, Matt? The indigenous schools? Residential schools.
Residential schools. Yeah, so that's another commonality between the prison industrial complex and the foster industrial complex. They have a common history rooted in colonialism and genocide of indigenous people, but also with enslaving African people and the same racial capitalist industry that supported and was fueled by settler colonialism and enslavement. So in the case of the child welfare system, which is often overlooked, its roots go back to the use of family separation as a tool, as a weapon of controlling these communities. And so, of course, during the slavery era, Black families had no legal rights whatsoever. The children were owned as chattel property by enslavers, and enslavers had total authority over those children, and of course they separated families at their whim whenever it was economically advantageous for them to punish and quell rebellion by Black people, or at the auction block, different enslavers would purchase different family members separately. So the idea that white people should have authority over Black families is deeply rooted in enslavement. But I think what's even more close to and a tighter root, direct root of our family policing system today is the apprenticeship of Black children after the Civil War. This was a time, and abolitionists have pointed this out, where white supremacists, who dominated the South, wanted to regain control of the South, and they destroyed Reconstruction efforts by effectively re-enslaving Black people through Black codes, the convict leasing system. These are the roots of mass incarceration today. But part of it that often gets overlooked is court-ordered apprenticeships of Black children back to former white enslavers. And this was done by judges who deemed that Black parents were neglectful, just like judges do today, and ruled that children should be indentured to former white enslavers. Sometimes the very men who enslaved them, they were put back to work under this court-ordered apprenticeship system. So at this very same time, in the 19th century, the U.S. government was waging so-called Indian wars against native tribes to dispossess them of their land. And the military began a military campaign. This was a strategy of war, of removing native children from their families and putting them initially in military barracks. Again, this is a weapon of war. This then led in the 20th century to the U.S. government's policy of removing native children from their homes on grounds of neglect. This was in conjunction with the Child Welfare League of America, and putting them in white-run orphanages or to be adopted by white families. So it's really important to understand that the system we have today was always designed to regulate and punish and dispossess and disrupt and destroy families in communities. And it's those are the very communities that are most likely to be disrupted by family policing today.
It's white paternalism, right? And it's also working in conjunction with this, as you say, settler colonialism, and by extension, Christian conversion, right? I mean, churches, obviously nakedly so in the case of these indigenous children, but also in the underlying reform of promoting orphanages and taking kids away and penalizing them for poverty. And you will be a part of civilized America, civilized society. Can you talk about those orphanages and that concept, particularly in the 19th and 20th centuries?
Yeah, so overall, this system has always been a system for impoverished families. Even if you don't take into account the kind of weapon of child removal and family separation used against Black and Indigenous communities, which of course we have to do, but even those who ignore that have to take into account that it is always designed from conception in the Elizabethan Poor Law to address the wants, the deprivations caused by society of impoverished families. And so it's important to understand that it is a system for poor people, and it punishes poverty. It always has, and it does today. Today, through the very definition of neglect, which is usually conflated with poverty, it's simply parents who are unable to meet the needs, the material needs of their children. So I want to highlight that aspect of it. But it's been framed from the beginning as a child-saving enterprise. Are going into homes to rescue abused and deprived children from their families. And this is what I call a benevolent terror, because what they're actually doing is invading people's homes and terrorizing them with accusations, investigations, and the trauma of child removal. But it's painted as if this is some kind of benevolent act by the government or by Christian organizations or other charitable organizations to save these children. I think that is still the dominant view in America of what the child welfare system does, and it is extremely effective propaganda at getting people to ignore the obvious and well-documented harms to children.
Yeah, and it also strips Black people, non-white people of agency. I mean, both literally, but also in the way that they're presented, which is that they are purely victims that we're going to fetishize. Frankly, it's like the picture of the Christian missionary girl going to Africa and using kids as props while they're doing charity work. That's part of the other troubling. There's so many troubling aspects of the treatment of Black
incapable of taking good care of their children. So it deprives Black families of agency, like you said, literally by taking their children away from them and then monitoring them intensively. You know, 'cause what happens when your children are removed, when you're threatened with child removal, is that the agency gives you a list of mandated tasks. And usually on the list is parental training, because the whole idea is, well, the problems your children are having is that you're not a good enough parent, so we'll train you to be a better parent. Again, this very paternalistic, ridiculous, really, attitude. But, so it literally does that, but it also, it's not it's an empathetic toward the parents, as if, you know, we feel sorry for you, we're going to help you. If you are, especially Black mothers, you are incapable of being a good parent. I mean, just think of they all paint Black women as innately bad mothers, you know, sexually promiscuous, the Black Jezebel. Even the mammy who took care of white people's children was supposed to be neglectful of her own children and didn't care about her own children. She just, you know, was dutiful toward white children. Of course, then she also had to be supervised by white women. She wasn't really in charge of those children. She just cared for them. And then there's the welfare queen, who was supposed to have children just to get a welfare check. And that was so popular that even when you say welfare queen, you know it's a Black woman. You know that she doesn't really care about her children. She has children to rip off white taxpayers. And that she doesn't spend the money on them, she spends it on herself. And then there was the Black crack addict, who was supposed to trade sex for crack. Again, had babies because of her crack addiction, and then was supposed to transmit this depraved lifestyle to her children, who were so-called crack babies. Again, you don't have to say Black crack babies, because everybody knew they were Black babies who were predicted to lack social consciousness and go off to be welfare dependents and criminals and be a menace to society. So, and I could go on with others, but all of these stereotypes.
They got to just find the gear for this thing.
People listening, they're identifiable to everybody.
Just don't know where it is.
They're so present. They're so powerful, and every single one of those stereotypes has profoundly shaped policy in the United States. I mean, it shaped the policy toward drug use during pregnancy, or being pregnant and using drugs, to a criminal activity that addressed by prosecuting pregnant women or new mothers. It led to the abolition of the federal entitlement to welfare under a Democratic administration, under Bill Clinton. It led to, in fact, we could look at the trifecta of the crime control bill, the restructuring of welfare, and the Adoption and Safe Families Act, all in the span of the 1990s.
Let's do that. I mean, we just had someone, I don't mean to cut you off, but we had someone write in, Brooklyn Sue. I worked at family court in the Bronx in the mid-90s, and the court officers had a motto for the institution: you make them, we take them. Like, that is how prevalent this was, and particularly yes, I misspoke, because I want to talk to you about how the next step of this is going to be when Roe v. Wade's appealed in weeks. If Black women are not perfect earthly vessels for their children, there's going to be more, drug testing, criminalization of mothers, which still happens to this day. But could you expand on how, particularly in the 80s and 90s,
I think you gotta go back to the water station.
Particularly, but also Reagan, how their presidency set up the infrastructure for a rapid increase in the kind of carceral systems that you described.
Right. Well, we do, again, we could start earlier, but let's start with Ronald Reagan. Reagan is the one who promoted the the idea that there had to be a war on drugs and crime, that meant intensifying police surveillance and incursions into black communities, the beginning of the unraveling of the federal entitlement to welfare, and also massive increase in the foster care population because more and more black families were getting access to welfare benefits. We see this backlash against it. This actually began in the 60s. I mean, we can see it as a backlash against the civil rights movement, but it intensified over the 80s and 90s, leading to a huge buildup, skyrocketing of the foster care population, and astronomical gaps in the numbers of black children removed from their homes versus white children. So it was the increase in a punitive approach, focusing on child removal as opposed to providing services to families in their homes, all on the backs of black families. And so then we see in the 1990s under Bill Clinton this neoliberal white supremacist approach, which is relying on the market to take care of families. And if you can't make it to remove children from their home, and with the Adoption and Safe Families Act, prioritizing adoption. It's in the title of the law, passed in 1997, a year after the welfare restructuring law. And we have to see all of this together, which is a punitive approach to the most a welfare law that's basically a behavior modification under this myth that what black women need to do to solve poverty in black communities is take low-wage work, get married, and stop having so many babies. So along with welfare restructuring, our so-called family caps or child exclusion policies passed in many states that deny any increase in benefit to mothers who have babies after they're already receiving welfare. Okay, so for the first time in U.S. history, we have this confluence of the war on drugs and intensive police incursions, skyrocketing mass incarceration, no entitlement to federal aid to take care, or state aid, no entitlement to government aid to take care of children, and a mandate in the Adoption and Safe Families Act that you must terminate parental rights after a sped up amount of time, and bonuses, literal bonuses in states to increase adoption. Have I connected the dots? You know, this is amazing, and all of this based on the idea that black mothers, fueled by black mothers being the cause of all these problems, having children that are destined to be welfare cheats and criminals, and focusing on child removal, and one thing I left out, I mentioned it earlier, at the same time, we have this new form of criminalization of pregnancy. And yes, it's true that there have been, since the Casey decision, there's been an assault on the access to abortion care. And with the Casey decision, the ability of states to pass laws designed to keep people from getting abortion. And we see now with the Mississippi and other state laws, but the Mississippi law before the U.S. Supreme Court basically ban abortion, and the threat that Roe v. Wade will be overturned. At the same time, though, and this is why I'm focusing on how the criminalization of black mothers is so important to this debate today, we begin to see in the late 1980s the prosecutions of black women for being pregnant and using drugs. It began with prosecutions of black women, and that has then opened up fetal protection laws, and not just prosecution of women for using drugs while pregnant, but prosecutions of women for homicide, for miscarriages and stillbirth. And we see a real confluence of laws that criminalize pregnancy broadly, whether it's for having a stillbirth, whether it's for having a miscarriage, whether it's for using abortion pills, whether it's for getting an abortion from a doctor. These are all one joint misogynistic right-wing assaults on our freedom, reproductive freedom. And it is really a shame that people, the movement for reproductive rights didn't see that this was one concerted assault. It's not just legal bans on abortion services. It is an assault on pregnancy altogether. And the criminalization of black women in the late 80s into the 1990s helped to fuel the situation we're in now, where we are at risk of massive criminal prosecutions and other kinds of punishment of people for pregnancy. And of course, that is connected to, what I wrote about in Torn Apart. It's part of a white supremacist, racial capitalist, and misogynistic, sexist, patriarchal, heterosexist attempt to control
Okay.
women and other pregnant people as well. But I see it as a assault on it's racist and sexist and heterosexist all together, assault on our freedoms.
Yeah, and what makes this so chilling, frankly, and you connect it to the present day, is that
No more
the
bullshit.
reason the child tax credit
I want some
expired,
answers.
I know.
one of the many reasons,
I know,
but
you're
the
right, and I always wanted to tell
Joe
you.
Manchin was,
But I can only remember a little, and the
they're
rest
gonna
is just
send
gone.
That's what this is. It's the
Does it matter if I borrow mommy for a little bit?
That was a recognition.
Don't you stand there.
We have
Do something.
that way, and that child poverty is a massive problem in this country, and instead of penalizing kids for their poverty, perhaps we should attempt to alleviate it. I don't know, crazy idea, and it went away because of those racist tropes used as justification by Joe Manchin.
Exactly, but look, white supremacy, racism, these racist stereotypes about black mothers are a major, if not the major barrier against the kind of radicals we need in America to truly meet people's human needs. And here again, the family policing system plays a critical role because it puts all the blame on parents and family caregivers for the needs, not meeting the needs of their children. This is a critical aspect of this, because what is the answer then to childhood poverty in America? It takes impoverished children, especially if they're black or indigenous, away from their parents and put them in the foster care system and pretend that maybe adoption would be a solution. And it's very interesting that Justice Cody Barrett and also Alito, in a reference, especially on a particular footnote in the Dobbs leaked opinion, point to adoption as the answer to banning abortion, that women who are pregnant can just drop off their babies at safe havens and they'll be adopted. Isn't it interesting that also, here's another tie, that also is the answer that people give for how the family policing system will save impoverished children. Take them from their parents who can't meet their needs and put them in foster care, and let's incentivize getting them adopted. Of course, it's all a fake pretense of what will actually end childhood poverty in America, but that pretense convinces so many people that we need this system, and this system system is going to save impoverished children, especially impoverished Black and Native children, when in fact what we need are the kinds of policies that provide the income, the housing, the medical care, the education, the kinds of material resources that children need, and we should direct the billions and billions of dollars that's spent on separating children from their families and maintaining them in a harmful,
there we go.
harmful foster industrial complex, and spend that money on simply giving income to people that they need to raise children, in addition to supporting community-based mutual aid and other kinds of resource providing services and programs and other ways of actually meeting children's needs and supporting families and keeping children safe.
Some of the numbers cited in your book are just insane. More than half of Black children in the United States will be the subject of, or are the subject of an investigation by the family policing system. Something you describe, which as a white person, I never thought of it, but that there's an ingrained fear of, maybe Child Protective Services will come to my home in some in Black families, and the figure for white children is around 28%. I have written down, but that's nearly double for Black kids in the country.
That's right. So yes, and let me emphasize again a recent study that found that more than half, 50% of Black children in America will experience a child welfare investigation by the time they reach age 18. That is a huge number. And in case people don't realize it, a child welfare investigation is traumatic by itself. Even if children aren't removed, there's the threat that caseworkers and police, often accompanied by police, are going to forcibly remove children from their homes. So that threat is hanging over the family during the investigation. They search every corner of the house. They inspect refrigerators, cabinets, closets. They interrogate children separately. They sometimes strip search children to look for evidence of abuse. These are really traumatic experiences. And just the idea that in America, Black families are seen as so risky that half of Black children would need to be investigated, that just tells you something about the devaluation of Black families in America. And then, on top of that, it is a different kind of experience than for Black children. This is the thing that I think the statistics don't bear out. But it also means that they're concentrated in Black neighborhoods. And so you can get a map of this big city and look at where child welfare investigations take place, pinpoints to show where they are. It almost always maps exactly onto where the most segregated Black neighborhoods are. It maps onto where there are high levels of incarceration, high levels of poverty. It's all concentrated in these neighborhoods. And that means that everybody in the neighborhood is aware of this system. I did a study in Vermont, in Chicago, to look into this, and everyone I interviewed called it the system. The Department of Children and Family Services, the system. It was so ubiquitous and prevalent in the neighborhood that it was the system in their lives, and everybody knew about it. Everyone had some contact with somebody
Nice.
And there was no neighborhood in Chicago that was predominantly white that had anywhere near that amount of homelessness. Everybody knows that, you know, in the white middle class or affluent neighborhood, people just have no experience with the system. But if you go into a black segregated neighborhood, the kinds of things that you say and that children understand that they're at risk of being taken from their parents. Little kids, they know, you know, they know the caseworkers, they know the band. They can identify when the band comes to the neighborhood. Oh, that's, you know, that's the system coming in. Somebody's kids are going to be taken away.
And indigenous families as well. We should also add. Yeah.
Absolutely. That to indigenous families as well have this very common experience. And I don't think that we have come to grips.
It's creepy how you can see her shadow like that, but I love the design of this game, so I don't give a fuck.
The impact on relationships between children and their parents, the sense of family security, and we're not, you know, this is apart from all the harms when your child is taken from you and put into a harmful foster care system, where also we know that black children fare worse than any other children who, and you know, on average, all children who are in foster care, on average, have poor outcomes. There are exceptions, but the outcomes in terms of college attendance. I told you to stay out of here! Are all bad.
It's traumatic to be taken from your family, and I'm reminded of another racist trope of where are the fathers, right?
All right,
all these intersecting, and frankly, layers of, if you escape these systems of breaking apart families and criminalization, you're lucky, honestly, because the system's so stacked against you.
You hear me? Beyond the pale!
And you know, you broke down this story that I remember on social media.
Have your way with my family! And y'all gonna like it!
Transitioning
How do I get out?
That he was failing to thrive and malnourished, and they took custody of the child. Now, to make matters worse, I mean, that's bad enough. Again, it just gives you an example of how the system operates, that you go for help and you get punished for it. I mean, just imagine what that means in terms of people's willingness to seek help. This is one of the problems of it. It turns service providers, teachers, doctors, social service providers into enemies, you know, into government agents that threaten to take your children away. What sense does that make in supporting families?
And it must have a chilling effect too, because
I'm not going to use this until I get to that one scene, I guess.
Talk about how she felt intimidated in terms of miscarriage procedures because of the Alabama laws and how stifling that can be. And it can work for black families as well. They're not going to want to seek help. I told you to stay out of here! If they're going to be
about had enough of you, young man.
And your children will take it. Because also
God only knows.
documented in the case of domestic violence, because many systems remove children when their mothers call for help or ending the home. Even if the child has been seeing the violence and experiencing
Come here, my pretty. You're gonna die in this hole, and you're gonna like it.
and survive violence. Now, that of course deters many women from seeking help because they don't want their children taken from them.
Why don't you just stay down? You think you can waltz in here and have your way with my family?
How do I do it?
My babies!
Okay, I need to YouTube this.
Take their child away from them because they sought help. So, I like to point out that the idea that mandated reporting is protecting children, and that these professionals feel they have to call CPS on families is just not true, because they don't call CPS, Child Protective Services, on affluent families. They call it, they only serve as agents for family policing of the most marginalized families. And if I could just, do more time, I just wanted to conclude what happened to Saisha Americano.
Yes.
It didn't just end with them taking her son. After her baby was born, because now she's been labeled by the system as a risky mother, the judge ordered that
I think I just need more ammo.
and pick up or
Hope I can find that throughout the house.
baby. And fortunately, her partner Instagrammed live what happened when the Manatee County Sheriff's Department pulled her car over when she's sitting in the back with this 10-day-old baby, and they came, surrounded the car, armed officers accompanied by some caseworkers, and demanded that she give up the baby. And they took her baby, breastfeeding, newborn baby, no evidence that there was any harm to this baby, and kept the child for 9 days. Now, fortunately, she had a social media presence, she had high-profile lawyers, there was a video of it, but imagine if she didn't have any of that. I guarantee you, they would have kept that baby. That baby might have ended up staying in foster care for years. And this happens all the time. This isn't unusual. This happened to be videotaped, but this is the way in which the system operates to really degrade and devalue Black families and traumatize them. What was the point of holding that newborn baby for 9 days? There's just no way you can say they protected the baby at all. They traumatized and harmed the entire family, including this baby. And imagine if they hadn't gotten her back and she ends up kept in a hospital, in the care of strangers. It really is a traumatizing, terroristic system that, again, as you can see here, is in cahoots with law enforcement, terrorizing families, and blaming them for what is caused by structural racism, then blaming them for the needs children have. And we need to replace it with ways that we know benefit children much more We know that increasing income, for example, of impoverished families is the best way to improve the welfare of impoverished children. That's so well documented. It's obvious. We shouldn't have to do studies, but it's so well documented. And yet, as you pointed out, that's unpopular in the United States. We try it out, and then there's an effort to cut it off as soon as possible, despite the fact that studies showed, it lifted, millions of children out of poverty. And we know that that benefits children, but let's cut that off. Meantime, we'll continue to have. I told you to stay out of here!
Thank you for your time today, Dorothy Roberts, professor of sociology and civil rights from the University of Pennsylvania, and author of Torn Apart: How the Child Welfare System
All right, you little cocksucker!
Dorothy, thanks so much for your time. Great discussion.
Thanks, Emma. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
Why won't you just stay down?
We are going to wrap up
Not that
first
shit!
hour of this program. So I am seeing, I'm seeing a bunch of IMs about this.
You're gonna die in the cold, and you're gonna like it!
Cashews writes in, hey, I'm majority
There we go.
be a great senator, but are you worried about the chance to split the left vote if Chris Gonzalez and Crowley gets elected? Gonzalez already got endorsed by AOC, DSA, and the Working Families Party, so why should I support a candidate when the rest of the institutional left is backing another leftist poggers? It's a great point. It's a great point. Look, yesterday, I did not know that Nomi was running in a district with Kristen Gonzalez and this, who's backed by DSA, one of this historically large number of DSA candidates in the upcoming elections here in New York. I wish I had known that, frankly. Nomiki's a friend of the show, and she's gonna, it's her choice to run.
I think that's it.
But I really don't have an answer for how that, because I got a lot of those messages
Well,
too. I didn't
did you find a son?
I just got done dealing with your mom and her fucking bugs.
Right.
Wish you could have warned me.
And frankly, I was a little confused
Sorry about
because
that.
the
What about
district
the
had
sheriff?
just been
I haven't found
redrawn, so it was
any.
hard to keep track
But I
for
did
me.
find out we need to
But
make one. A D-series head and an arm. This can't be right.
The head? I think I have that around here somewhere.
You do?
I don't know about the arm, though. Have you searched the whole house?
No, not yet. I still need to check the second floor here.
All right. Check it out. Meet me at the trail if you find it.
Win. And I kind of, in the vacuum, can relate to that and see the best candidate win. But you do have that Crowley vote split issue, and you do have the entire rest of the left lineup behind Kristen Gonzalez, who I think is a really good candidate, who I'm probably going to go to. So it's we've heard the criticism, and
very valid, frankly.
And I think that's the challenge probably for the campaign is how do you that's a huge concern, and I don't share some assessment of limitations of DSA that maybe Nomiki does. I guess I don't want to be seen as hostile to DSA particularly.
No.
I really like that.
Frankly, because I do too.
How's it going?
Because I before this news about Nomi, I praised the DSA slate. So I just want to be transparent that I was not aware of that conflict yesterday, and I think some of these questions can go towards Noniki directly, but I think that it's valid to ask these questions 100%.
Yeah.
All right, folks, with that, we are going to head into the fun half, but first, I want to bring in Matt Binder.
Oh, sorry. We might need
Brandon.
to take a break.
Okay, we need to take a break.
Okay, they're here.
Matt's...
I'm going to take a 30-second break, see if I can get them on.
Yeah. Quick break.
teamed up with Lance from the Surfs. He'd invited me to join him to have a little discussion with these two centrist, sort of conservative-leaning centrists, I guess they would call themselves. I don't know, Adam and Sitch, or Sitch and Adam. And we had a discussion for like a few hours about a range of topics. And people seem to have really enjoyed it or really hated it. It seems like it went either way. So you can tune in to youtube.com/MattBinder and check that out. I'll be putting up the audio shortly for that at doomedcast.com, wherever you listen to podcasts. And then tonight on Scam Economy, I will be airing the Scam Economy live show that was live in Brooklyn last Thursday. Just getting around. Look, they just got me all the audio and video and put it all together, and it's looking good. And Michael Edison Hayden of the Southern Poverty Law Center joins me to discuss how Bitcoin and crypto is being used by some of the worst people on the planet, from Alex Jones to Stefan Molyneux to the Daily Stormer, etc., etc. So it's scameconomy.com for that, and also it'll be airing at youtube.com/MattBinder as well, 9 p.m. Eastern Time tonight.
Awesome. Brandon, what's happening on the discourse, if anything at all?
Well, the boys were off for Memorial Day, and I like to respect that. Respect the right to workers to take off.
Right.
Cough, cough. But no, we'll have a new episode up for you by the end of the week. Maybe soon, regarding the epidemic of shootings that is gripping our fair nation.
There we go.
All right. And Matt.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. What happened on Left
Now
Right?
she's a spoiler.
Yeah, we had
Ewy.
That's special.
We talked for an hour on guns. David and I just going back and forth about the different concerns we have about how we end up policing this stuff as we move forward, but also granting that something needs to be done about it. And just what kind of things we try to bundle it towards. So, hour-long discussion about guns with Kristen and I, and talk about Dollar General workers. Patreon.com/Chip. That's Reppy, where we get into this Elon Musk business.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, yes. 64625.
Opening this game up.
See you in the fun now.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt. What is up, everyone? You know me.
We did. Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all boys today.
Fundamentally false. No, I'm sorry. Where is
Talking. Oh, wait a second. Let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
You know what? Smoking today.
Yes.
Yes.
In the tree.
It is you.
In the tree.
I think it is you. Goes out every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
Libertarian. This is stupid. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge man.
Positively over.
I believe 96, I want to say. 857 210 35 501. How many eights?
$3,400. $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
Let me say this.
Oh, satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
any infectious agent here on Earth, right? If it's a new pathogen, a new organism, you do it slowly, carefully. You often do it with levels of containment. So, yeah, and it's going to be probably has to be worth.
All right, let's get into this. Over the past, I mean, I don't know, 24 hours, 16 hours, the story tendered by, and there's multiple police departments that are involved in the Uvalde, Texas shooting, including like the Texas Department of Public Safety, the school force that's specifically to protect schools. I should say the police force specifically to protect schools. Then the state police. And they seem at odds because there are differing stories and there have been evolving stories. Let's just go with this. Here's Texas Governor, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. This is him yesterday.
Or over the weekend.
Was this yesterday?
I think it was Saturday. Yes, it was Saturday.
Okay, this is Saturday. Just give you a sense of how things have evolved.
That was the mistake that did not follow protocol. It was the security officer not on the campus. That was the mistake. It was an open door held by a rock that allowed that person to do that. And look, and that teacher will live with that decision also.
Yeah, it turns out none of that ends up being the case. Now,
special place in hell for somebody who blames the teacher there, which wasn't even true, by the way. But even if the teacher did leave the door open with a rock, you trying to claim that she or he has to live with that decision, not the gun manufacturers, not you Republican politicians who refuse to do anything about it. It's a teacher who might have wanted a little bit of a breeze in the classroom. And it's not even true. So.
And Insider.com outlines at least 13 times that the police stories have changed. The door, and I think the latest was the door was held open by a rock, and then it was shut by a teacher when they heard there was an active shooter on, and now they're saying it didn't lock.
The teacher's lawyer pushed back on that, and that seems to now be confirmed because, of course, the teacher has to lawyer up now because the teacher.
Got a police force that's going to put shit on it.
Yep, exactly.
And now you have the school district. They call it the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Chief. I mean, it's just sort of amazing the different police forces that they have here. Again, 40% of the town's budget goes to policing. They are not talking to the other police.
The investigation into what happened. They're not cooperating.
Well,
and it was the, sorry to cut you off, Sam, but it's the Uvalde police chief who made this decision. Was also the incident commander on site when this happened, making the decisions that led to this botched response. And frankly, we have to start asking questions about what they're covering up here.
Of course, and
it's something big, I think.
And apparently, the school district police chief, was sworn into the city council last night. They had obviously won the election, but they did it in private. They swore the city council in. Now, there's a lot of hens, or I should say foxes guarding the hen house type of situation here. I don't know what the DOJ is up to at this point. We don't know if it is if they're begun their investigations or they plan to investigate. There's been some talk about that. But this is just amazing. if they're this disorganized without nefariously covering something up, there's a real problem. I mean, right? Because these are the people supposedly or that are in charge of investigating and providing evidence and locking people up, right? I mean, 40% of the city's budget goes to pay all these people. And this is just probably the only time in the history of this town's policing in any way that they've received any significant measure of scrutiny.
Yeah.
I mean, after this, if I'm a lawyer with any client who's had any relationship with the police departments in the city, I'm going to call for the case to be reopened because they're either unmitigated liars or incredibly incompetent or both.
Frankly, I still think, there needs to be more pressure on the Biden administration. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, should be looking into this. I don't know what the status is, as you say, of the Department of Justice probe, but they're covering up something, extremely either negligent or bloody here, frankly, I believe. And also just to comment quickly on Dan Patrick's rush.
Did I really just knife her to death?
This was a point that was made on this program last week, maybe in the context on Thursday of that Steven Crowder clip where he was using it as a way to attack public schools. They are gonna, because they have nowhere to run from the gun debate, right? It's so open and shut and obvious that we shouldn't have these weapons of war being sold to anybody so easily. They're not even really on the mental health thing anymore. I mean, Laura Ingraham last night was blaming pot, but they're going to go after public schools as an institution. They are inherently unsafe. One, they're unsafe because the teachers are grooming your kids to be trans and gay, but also those teachers who are unable to protect your kids from mass murder. So this is why we should defund them. More homeschooling.
They barely have any paramilitary training.
Yeah, barely.
The story that I would watch to see if it gets changed is like this weekend they said, we think that all of the kids who died were shot by the gunman. And I think like it could very well turn out that even despite not breaching the door and stopping this guy, they somehow managed to like fire in and kill a kid.
I was dancing around it a bit, but we don't know. I mean, well, but it's a yeah.
That's the sort of thing, like the appearance of impropriety. Like the idea that a police department is changing their story publicly like this is a menace to, the public.
Yeah.
Alrighty, now we pop back down here and go up back through this hole. And what do you know? We're here. Oh wait, I think I remember. There's a secret in the detention room that I have to do.
Oh, I guess this is it.
Let's give Beto O'Rourke some credit here. The easy criticism is that this is all performative.
All politics is performative.
But all politics is performative. What the hell do you think they're all doing? That's what this arena is.
And you can be convincingly performative, and you can come from an authentic place. Sometimes I think it's not the case with Beto, and he's not convincing. But on this issue, it's he's harnessing the outrage accurately.
Yeah, and the average performativity, which is the most ludicrous thing there is.
Right. And he popped that bubble when they were all sitting there pretending they were upset about this stuff, and it has changed and put the Republicans on the defensive. And it is this is exactly what you should be doing. You should be doing, particularly as somebody who's just running for office. I mean, it's not like he's even in a position of actually doing anything beyond running. This is exactly what they should be doing.
50th in the nation in mental health care access. 50th. There are only 50 states in the nation. We are dead last. The #1 provider of mental health care services under Greg Abbott in the state of Texas is the county jail system in the state of Texas. The largest inpatient mental health care facility in the state of Texas is the Harris County Jail in downtown Houston, Texas. He's refused to expand Medicaid, which would bring $10 billion a year, including mental health care access. Having trouble. They may kill somebody. They may kill themselves. A red flag law would protect the public. He's refused to support safe storage laws so young people cannot get their hands on their parents' guns. He's refused to support a ban on AR-15s and AK-47s. This 18-year-old who just turned 18 bought an AR-15 and took it into an elementary school and shot kids in the face and killed them. Why are we letting this happen in this country? Why is this happening in this state? Year after year, city after city. This is on all of us if we do not do something, and I am going to do something, and I'm not alone. The people of Texas are with us. The majority of the people of Texas are with us, but we've got to stand up to this. Or we just accept this theater and business as usual, and we accept the next shooting. We could have stopped this if we had stood up after Santa Fe High School. If we had stood up after El Paso, we are going to stop the next one. We're standing up right here in Uvalde, Texas right now. That's why I'm here. So the people of Texas want right now. That's what we're going to focus on.
I mean, that's good. You've got to take control of the narrative, and that's what he's doing on some level. And I have my issues with him over the years, but credit where credit's due. That is how we should be seeing that type of response from Democratic leaders, spokespeople, elected officials, all across the country.
Digby kind of alluded to this, and I totally agree, which is like, I understand and respect where Chris Murphy's coming from. He has personal experience in his state with this, but the difference is him still making overtures to Republicans as if they will do anything with him. Like, Beto, what the important rhetorical flourish that Beto is using is absolutely not pitting us as if this is something that there will be an olive branch or some sort of kumbaya moment, because there's clearly not going to be.
Well, he's fighting. I mean, he's campaigning against a Republican, so it helps him. I mean, Murphy's in a different
situation.
But I totally agree, and I also loved his emphasis on the healthcare prong of the mental health debate, because or not debate, but the Republicans are talking about mental health as a way to obscure the issue, obviously. But actually, I think it was Binder, or maybe one of you guys yesterday on the show brought up, I don't know if you saw this, Sam, but...
Together. I'll be waiting for you in the trailer.
Alright.
So I have to go back to the trailer. Okay. Well, she was upstairs. I think I know what that meant now.
Now, where the hell are you? You know, never mind. We only need the head, and you've got it. This is gonna help me and me, right?
Hey, buddy. I thought you should know. I decided that Zoe needed a timeout. She and Mia are here with me. And they're keeping each other company.
Just let them both go! What do you need them for?
Nah, that's family business, Ethan, and not your concern, understand? Now, if you want the head, feel free to come by any time and I'll give it to you. But only if you participate in a little, activity I put together. Just for you.
What activity?
Oh, I know you're excited, but don't worry. It's not going anywhere. First step I need you to take, partner, is for you to take a peek inside the fridge in the trailer there.
Fuck you!
Oh, come on now, don't be like
Me.
that. You want to have fun, don't you? Now, look in the fridge.
Ugh.
That pretty little thing will help you find the 2 key cards that you're gonna need to join the party we're having over here.
What the fuck? What the what? What the what? That's bogus, dude.
That pretty little thing will help you find the 2 key cards that you're gonna need to join the party we're having over here. You gotta earn your way, Ethan.
Ugh, I'm trying so hard to get past them. I'll lead them into the room, and then I'll dodge them. That's the plan.
That pretty little thing will help you find the 2 key cards you're gonna need to join the party we're having over here. You gotta earn your way, Ethan.
There we go. Fuck those boys. There's a snake door over here that I haven't opened yet. Ba ba ba, don't the flight. So lonely out in space. What do you mean it's locked from the other side, dude? The fuck? There we go. Just go. Ten to 15. There we go.
Oh my god.
Okay. That was the first key card. What the fuck? Somehow I got lost. I do not know how. There we go. Save it really quick. Okay, keep that in mind for later then. perfect, dude. How is that not perfect? Fuck lockpicks. Okay. Now what did that do, I wonder?
Hey, buddy. Remember, those 2 key cards will get you into the party. Don't be late now.
Let me talk to Mia.
No, no, no! You gotta show up first! You haven't forgotten where the party is, have you? You can get in from the courtyard. So come on, man! Everybody's waiting for you!
Okay. Now.
You are one lucky son of a bitch. You know, I actually envy you. What? You don't believe me? This short? Well, you can't fake this. It has taken me weeks to finish this, and it is finally ready. And it's all for you. Oh, come on now. Don't be like that. It's gonna be fun. Just you wait.
Okay, so gotta do this quick.
I'd really like to make it out of this room alive and not die a horrible, painful death. I know. It's a temp title. Take a candle, light it, and put it on the cake. And remember to smile. This party is for you.
Fuck you!
What the fuck is this? What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, man. No! Disgusting. Ugh. Ugh. This is gross. Ugh.
Happy birthday!
Shogun here, and in this video I will embark on my craziest journey yet. Today I am doing a little bit of investigative journalism. I am going undercover as a Amber Turd fan in order to infiltrate Amber Turd's fan base to see what they're talking about, to see what they're like, because I haven't been able to have any dialogue with an Amber Turd fan yet. So I want to see what's going on in their minds. And it turns out today they started a new...
Oh, this one.
Chance to speak. I try to reason with these people. I believe Andy Signor comes in and tries to reason with these people. It's going to get insane. So stay tuned, and I promise you, you're going to want to watch this one till the end.
Like Mr. Cards, Johnny on. Out the bullshit. This guy is bullshit. He's always been bullshit. We've had to call him out. So, literally anything from Google. I
really adore you for like sharing that traumatic event of your life. And
I'm not even trolling because sometimes people think I'm trolling, but I know.
No, I really believe you. Like, and Turkey has one of the highest femicide rates in the world, so I understand. So it's like when I see like rich women like Amber Heard not getting justice, or there was this Saudi princess, and Saudi royalty. Oh my God. But she had all that privilege, but then in the end she was killed by her own father. Her own father.
My dad tried to kill me and my mom 2 times.
Exactly.
I'm literally a survivor of domestic abuse, and it's literally...
May God give you strength.
Yeah, like I literally became pure up. Like me and my mom had to kick her. What is that word? I just what is that? Like I just really want to say something before I go. Yes, I have already found in my. Okay, go ahead. Okay, that's really get close story. But anyways, I wanted to speak on the fact that Johnny Depp is actually racist. I wanted to go on what Mel said earlier. He actually did the equivalent of native blackface in the movie The Lone Ranger, when he portrayed a Native American when he's not actually anything. So he is in fact racist, and he got millions off that money for doing basically a native neutral. I do believe he has like I forgot the word for the American. I'm sorry, I'm Mexican, so I don't remember the word for the Indians from the United States. No, that's the way we say it in Mexico. Sorry. That's the way we say it in Mexico. That's why I specified. I'm not fighting with anyone, so please don't fight with me about that. So I do believe that Johnny is a Native American. I'm sorry if I got it again. Can I be reminded again?
Everybody wants to turn back.
Yes, that one. Yes, I believe he is by his Cherokee. I don't know if father or something like that.
I'm just trying to show you not everybody wants to go back to how things were.
It really doesn't matter. Yes, he did blackface. Yes, he's racist, but
I don't want to go back to how things were before my father found y'all.
He did native face. Oh, native face. Yes, exactly. So if he did that,
so Ethan.
It doesn't matter, to be honest. What matters is that he's an abuser. Okay.
You can crawl around underneath that filthy, rotten house all you want looking for them ingredients, but you ain't gonna find a goddamn thing, Ethan. You need that serum? Ooh, baby. You're gonna have to come through me. You hear?
Alrighty. I'm gonna take a break, but it was nice gaming with y'all. And I shall catch you on another fucking stream.